Well, the Bengals may be on a bye week, but that doesn't mean we're going to not talk about them this week on the Sports Authority. Mo Egger joining us again from ESPN 1530, Richard Skinner from Local12.com. Gentlemen, the bye week is here. Mo, what's the one thing you hope this team really worked on during the week?
Pass rush, more consistently getting to the quarterbacks they're going to face in the second half of the season. They have really faced one truly legitimate starting caliber quarterback in this league over the first 9 weeks. That's going to change. How do you neutralize that? Need more consistent pass rush.
I hope that somehow that Jonah Williams and La'el Collins went through the Anthony Munoz machine. I mean, you need both of those guys to play better because arguably both of them were just bad in the first half. I mean, their PFF grade, if you do it on the old school grading scale that we all went from 90 to 100 an A, et cetera, they were below 60, which I think in where I went was an F. Probably where you guys was an F, and that's kind of where they are at the moment.
Well, I mean, it depends on the school district, right?
That's a good point, too.
Well,
yeah.
If I got an F, I know my parents would, that's a different story for another time. One of the things that we're looking at is the punter position. When I talked to Darren Simmons last week before the bye week, he said the thing that they need to get better at is the punt game top to bottom. Kevin Huber has not lived up to what he has been. Skinny, it's something you and I have talked about off camera. Is it time to put Drew Crispin, who has been in uniform warming up before the last couple games, is it time to put him on the active roster?
Yeah, we talked to Darren last, whatever day, Monday or Tuesday, and he was really slow to get to the point of finally being asked directly, are you considering a change? And he said, I am. I have to do what's best for the team. And I think the way he said it was he's reluctantly going to go ahead and do it. Now, it wouldn't shock me if Kevin punts, but I think he's come to that realization that it is time to make the punting change.
Margin for error for this team offensively and defensively has shrunk in recent weeks, despite the way they played against Carolina. We all love Kevin Huber. It's time. I think some of us were surprised that he won the gig out of training camp. It was razor thin. I don't know that you could say Kevin Huber has improved his position from where he was at the end of camp. I think Crispin's got an NFL leg. At some point, you got to let him hold. It's time.
I always thought that going into the year, they were going to give Huber benefit of the doubt because of what he's done in the past and because he was one game away from getting the record.
I don't think the one game meant any different. For Darren Simmons, though, it was the trust factor of this guy's punted and held for me for 13 years. I know what I've gotten him. I don't quite know what I've gotten the kid, and then you let him go ahead and do it, and it just hasn't been great. It's not been awful. It just hasn't been great. Crispin has a chance to make it great.
The good news for the Bengals coming out of the bye is they got the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know it's on the road, and they haven't beaten the Steelers yet this year. The game was supposed to be a Carrie Underwood game at 8 o'clock at night on Sunday. Great for us that it got moved up to 4:25 on Local 12, by the way. Your home of the Bengals. I know Joe Burrow said before the year he doesn't care what time they play. Mo, should the Bengals be a little ticked off that this game got flexed out?
Well, they should have played better in their last couple of primetime games because if you're around the country and you watch them play against Cleveland and Baltimore offensively, do you want to watch that again? I think the good news is, though, if you wanted another home game at night, that Baltimore game, Week 18, right now stands a really good chance to be played under the lights.
And I hate to tell this for the people going to Nashville, so too does the Tennessee game in a couple of weeks. That might go under the lights, too.
All right, the injuries are going to be a thing that we're going to talk about the next couple of weeks because of the big names that are on it. Jamar Chase, are we going to see him anytime soon? Nobody seems to know that answer. Mike Hilton goes on the injured list right before. We think he'll be back for the Pittsburgh game. DJ Reader, we still don't know when we're going to see him. Skinny, are you concerned about these injuries, and how soon should we see some of these guys, you think?
Yeah, Mike says he's going to be back after the bye. I mean, he made a vow that he'll be back, and I believe that vow. DJ Reader, it seems like, is trending very much to coming back for that Pittsburgh game. Chase, obviously, they didn't put him on IR. The hope there is, in a perfect world, that left the Tennessee game in play. That's still probably a pipe dream that I saw him on crutches last Tuesday or whatever day that was. I mean, it did. He's still on crutches. If you can get him back for Kansas City, that seems like a very fair target at this point. If it's not then this thing is really, really bad at that point.
I think it's not necessarily the guys who have missed time in recent weeks. It's what happens if more gets added to that list. The Jamar Chase thing, you should be able to survive without him. They certainly did against Carolina. What happens if there's another injury? Because the drop-off, 1, 2, 3 versus who's beneath Tyler Boyd on the depth chart is stark. And then in the secondary, you simply cannot afford to lose anybody else without Chidobe Awuzie.
If you're the Bengals right now and you're looking out on the waiver wire, are you going to add guys to the practice squad because of the teams that you're going to go up against the second half of the season, some big-time wide receivers? Do you need to add to the roster?
Sure, you should always be looking to get better if there's a guy available who makes your overall operation better. Yeah, you should be looking. I'm concerned what happens if there's another significant long-term injury in the secondary. To me, it comes back to pass rush has to get better. You got to mitigate your losses there. I don't think this team can win a championship without Chidobe Awuzie. I know they can't without Chidobe Awuzie and one or two of their other better corners.
Yeah, I mean, I did a column looking back at the first half, and Chidobe Awuzie was my defensive MVP. I mean, you look at his numbers, his pro football reference numbers defensively, passer rating of 52.3 against, 19 catches on 50 targets against, 230 yards is all he's given up. You can survive that, but as Mo makes a good point, especially at outside corner. I thought Jalen Davis did a nice job at slot. I love Mike Hilton, and he's a starter for a reason. I mean, that's the point Louis Anarumo makes. These guys who are starting are starters for a reason. But boy, at the outside corner spot, I mean, the drop-off is huge. I mean, get to know Marvell Tell. Well, hopefully you don't have to get to know Marvell Tell. That's all I can tell you. He's a practice squad corner.
All right, finally here for the Bengals discussion, the key to the Bengals run in the second half, what is it?
I think it's if you can capture what you did in that Carolina game, run game wise. I'm not asking for 200 yards, but at least more consistency, and you saw some great consistency. If you can do that, put defenses off balance, I still think this is a potent offense without Jamar Chase. And the good news is, hopefully by Kansas City at the minimum, you get Jamar Chase back.
Yeah, the answer is twofold, and it's pretty obvious. Number one, can they run the ball well enough to make teams change how they defend them? Because that was the frustrating part of the first half of the season. They couldn't run it when teams were daring them to. At the end of the day, you're going to pay Joe Burrow $500 million. Got to put the team on his back at some point. We haven't seen that to the extent that I think we thought we would. If we see it in the second half of the season, this team can still do some pretty incredible things.
Team sitting at 5-4, still a lot of football in front of them, and still the potential to do everything they set out to do at the beginning of the year.